Hey everybody, so glad you're here and you're joining me today as we talk about the movie Greyhound starring Tom Hanks. And before we get started, I just want to say thank you guys for joining. And I also want to say if you have quick time, go ahead and go down there and hit that subscribe button for us. And so you won't miss out on any future videos, reviews, things like that Gary and I will be doing on this channel. So hit that subscribe. It's not that hard. Just go down there, just click it. If you're watching from Facebook, just go click on the link and then follow us over to YouTube and hit the subscribe button for us, and it'd be awesome. And you'll be doing us a huge favor, even though it's just a click. It doesn't cost anything, no money, no nothing. Just click, hit that subscribe, and keep supporting us in that way, and that'd be awesome. So as I was saying, like we're doing a movie review today. Gary is not with me because the guy is not able to have Apple TV, which is movies this is on, and so he was not able to watch it, which is sad. But hopefully, maybe he will be able to watch with us, and then our next review, he'll be on there with us. So today, as I was bringing up this, we are talking about this movie right here by the name of Greyhound, starring Tom Hanks, and I found out also written by Tom Hanks, which I thought was pretty cool. He did the screenplay for this movie, and it is, like I said, it is on Apple TV Plus. They bought the rights to it. This is another movie that should have been in theaters, but since it wasn't in theaters, the Apple TV bought the rights so they could show it. It actually came out last weekend, and I was able to check it out. And just a couple of thoughts going into this. First of all, I just thought this was kind of cool seeing Tom Hanks back on a boat. If you've seen him on Captain Phillips and such, he usually plays. Lately, he's been playing this kind of role where he's, just retelling the story, a true story of a hero that saved lives and the things that he'd done. So here he is again in this type of role. And like I said, I didn't find out to the end that this was a screenplay that he wrote, and I thought that was pretty cool. And so being able to see, those things. I don't know if he's written other movies or not. Again, Gary and I aren't professionals, so we don't dig too deep into that stuff. But just finding out about that, I thought that was actually pretty cool to see that. So to start things off here with the good and with the good things about this, of course, like I said, this is about a true story. This is a story about during World War II, the ships that were taking over supplies to the Allies, to the other side from America over there. And they would have, air cover to make sure no U-boats were trying to take them down, or submarines were trying to take down the ships and stop the supply runs. And what would happen though is the air cover from the planes, they could only go so far because of fuel. So there was about this 50-hour window where they had no air cover. So they had these battleships that would be their escorts that they had to keep their eye out and do the best that they could to find these U-boats and to stop them and to sink them before they sunk the ships with supplies. And so this is what this story is based around. It's based around this story of this battleship that went by the name of Greyhound. And Tom Hanks plays the captain of that ship. And what you find out very early on is this is his first time doing a run like this. This is the first time being the captain of a battleship. He worked his way up, and this is the time that he does this. Now this is his first time for it. And I thought this movie was pretty good because one thing that I thought that was really cool is as they went along in the story, they were able to help me feel like I was actually like on board the ship with Tom Hanks. And it just felt like we were watching his every move. Like you're one of the people working with him, trying to do the best they can to have cover for these guys and to protect all these other ships. And so I thought it was really good. I thought it was a fun take on that because usually with movies like this where they bring in this like naval ship stuff. Sorry, it took me a second. The naval ships and things from war. Usually what ends up happening is you have like maybe the captain and a few other characters that they are trying to follow, so you can see the different perspectives of different people on the ship. And this one actually didn't do that. What this one ended up doing was just following Tom Hanks, just following him as a captain and the decisions he had to make. And yes, you got to see other characters on the ship, but instead of like going to different parts of the ship all the time and seeing where they're at, what it did instead is every time he had to call them up onto the main bridge, I guess is I don't know Navy stuff, so I'm sorry, but brought him up to where he was giving orders. That's when you would interact with those characters, and you see them sometimes down in their area if it had like direct connection with with what's going on in the story and just kind of give you a little bit of info. But most of the time, you're following him. And I like this because, like I said, it made me feel like I was actually on the ship with them and seeing this whole thing playing out. And you're just kind of looking like, oh man, like what's going to happen? What's going to go on? So I thought that part was really good. And I thought the story was told very well. There wasn't a whole lot of, like, again, since they're focused on Tom Hanks as the captain, what they ended up doing was, even when you saw boats and stuff, they, like the U-boats, like they would go to those shots of the U-boats or the other boats and the things that were happening. But they were like pretty quick, like, okay, here's what's happening. And now we're going back to him, because the focus was, how is this captain being able to actually like react? This is his first time. He's trying to save the men on his ship. He's trying to save other ships. How is he reacting to everything? How is he handling? How is he making these decisions? And how is he coming about it? So I thought all that, all those things were really good. And it really gave you the sense of what these men were going through those 50 hours, because it was like 50 intense hours without any kind of air cover. Because once they make it to the other side and you have air cover, it's kind of like, all right, this is cool. Like they can rest a little bit and relax. But until that point, it gets really difficult. And the movie did a good job of keeping that suspense and that and the intensity of it, of what's happening during those 5 hours. So just so you guys know, Jim here, he's saying hello, and he says, I hope he doesn't give any spoilers. Listen, we will not do any spoilers on these channels. We are not going to do that. We'll just talk about it and let you guys know what's happening. But we're no spoilers. We're a firm believer of go watch the movie yourself, and then maybe we can talk about it later. But we won't do spoilers for stuff like this, so you don't have to worry about that. All right, so now for the bad. So we talked about the good, now let's talk about the bad. Some of the bad things about it, for me personally, was, even though I just said they did a really good job making you feel on the ship, there were these moments where they would cut to black, and then they would say, Greyhound, this is where they're at, so many hours left. And they would cut away from this moment, and it really just kind of took me out of the movie. And that was the one thing that I didn't really care for, because it was like I just got so sucked into the way they filmed this movie that when they did those cutaways, it was just kind of like, oh man, it just kind of took me out of the movie. Now I know what some may be thinking, like maybe that's a little nitpicky, but the thing is like when other movies do this, when other movies cut to a black to let you know here's what's going on, like a Dunkirk, for instance, they cut away to a different character, to a different part of that story. So having that cutaway made a lot of sense. But since this was sticking to this one specific story and this one specific character, to me, it just kind of took me out of it. And I just didn't really care for that aspect of it. Because one thing that was funny is that what they did throughout the movie was they would have someone shout out, there's so many hours to air cover. There's so many hours. So they had that mixed in with this cutaway. And so what I thought what they could have done is maybe if they had a cutaway, kind of like he's trying to get rest. There's one where there's like a thing that he did, it's like he would try to like quickly get rest, and he would have a flashback of the woman that he loves, that that he asked to marry. You see early on in the movie, he's asking for that, and he cuts back, he thinks of her, or he's standing at a window and he's thinking about scripture, which I'll get to that in a second, to try to help him make decisions. And I thought that those are probably good opportunities to show, like, okay, Captain, there's so many hours, and they could have passed time that way to kind of keep you more in the movie. But those black cutaways were something that was just like, man, it just kind of took me out of what's happening. And I didn't really care for that. And I just wish that they didn't cut away from those kinds of things. But honestly, like for me, like there wasn't much worse or anything else bad about this movie. For me, I thought that was probably the main thing. And yeah, there were some like cheesy moments, between the people on the ship and the captain and stuff, but it was fine. Like it wasn't that big a deal. But that was probably the biggest thing that I was like, man, I wish they would have done a better job with that. And I thought that just kind of seeing what was happening with that, I just felt like it would have been better they didn't do those kind of cutaways. So now moving on to the pastor part of it. So with this, the captain that Tom Hanks is playing is a Christian. They don't hide from that in the movie at all, which I thought was really cool. They don't shy away from it. They make it in the forefront that he's a Christian, he is a believer. You see, like before every meal, everybody stops and waits for him to pray, and they show him that respect, which I thought was really cool. Every time he tries to make a decision, he quotes scripture, or he tries to pray. He says, Lord, help me with this decision, or Lord, direct me with my past. There's one point where he says, be wise as serpent, but innocent as doves, when he's trying to figure out what's the right thing to do in a certain situation. So you see him go back to scripture, go back to prayer, go back to God, and you see him go back to the woman that he loves. And I thought these elements were really cool to see, that they didn't, one, shy away from it, which I thought was awesome, but two, just showing how this captain was able, through his faith, to just let that be an opportunity, whether it be scripture, whether it be prayer, or let it be the woman that God had in his life, that he was able to let God guide him in those ways. And that was, you saw him, how that calmed him. And in these intense moments where it was just like, oh, what is he going to do? This is getting tough. Like, what's the right decision? It was in these moments that you see that he was going to take a step back and put his faith in God and just relax and just try to say, okay, like, is this what the direction it would go? Like, Lord, help me make decision. He was able to clear his head through his faith, and it was able to calm him so he can make the right decisions moving forward. And so I thought that was really cool. And just seeing that from the movie, like, hey, like, even in intense situations, if we take a step back and just, whether it's quoting scripture or whether it's just prayer, and just let God's peace overcome us, then our head will be a whole lot clearer to make proper decisions and the decisions that we need to be made. Now, at no point in this movie did they try to say God gave him this direction or God said this. Like, that wasn't the point. They were just showing that, like, this is how he was able to have peace and have a clear head to make the decisions that he made, that was hopefully to save lives. And I also, I'm speaking on that, I also like that he was able to make his decisions. What he was really focused on was saving lives. It wasn't about where everybody else on the ship was about sinking U-boats, killing those Nazis. That wasn't his focus. His focus was on saving the lives of his men and the men on other ships. And you see that that's how his decisions was making. He's like, how can I save these men's lives? And which I thought was a good take, because usually in war movies, it's about killing the enemy, go after the enemy. And I know lately we've seen some different movies that take a different take, like a Hacksaw Ridge or something. But seeing that is kind of also refreshing, that it was about saving souls. And he even says that, he's like, I want to save souls. And I thought that was great. And I really did like that aspect of it, and just showing that how you can have peace in the midst of literal storms or intensity through scripture, through prayer, through what God has given you, and reflecting on those things and letting your mind be clear. But then also just seeing that even though he is a naval captain and he's on a battleship, he wasn't about taking lives, he was about saving lives. So I thought that was really cool aspect that they showed, where his faith changed his perspective in his job, even though he had a job to do. And yes, he had to take lives to save lives, but his main focus was saving lives. So I thought that was really cool. So from the dad aspect of this, if you're a father, and this is rated PG-13 for right reasons, language, I mean, it's naval guys, so language is pretty up there. It's not as crazy as some would think. I think you may hear like one or two, what PG-13s allow of F words. So nothing too crazy, but it is very much a war movie and naval guys. So you're going to hear some of that language and stuff like that. So I would definitely stick with that PG-13 rating. Your kids the best. If your kids have seen other war movies and you're already using war movies to help them maybe teach some history and things, and they're already there. I mean, hey, listen, you're the parent, you know that best, you know your kid best. But me personally, I would stick to that. And like, this is a movie like I would show my kids later on, because I love war movies and I love different aspects of war. So I think that's cool. So I would, stick to that rating, and just know that those kinds of things are in it. There's nothing, over the top. Even the violence in this, they don't show anything bloody or gory. Yeah, you see ships get blown up, you see people in the water or whatever, but you don't necessarily see. There's one shot where a man, because of a bullet being shot, he gets hit in the face, and it's a real quick shot. You see that he got hit, but you don't see how bad it is, but you see it's kind of bad. But there's nothing over the top or anything like that in this kind of thing. So if you're worried about violence or anything like that, just normal PG-13 violence with nothing over the top or gory. So nothing, distress really much on that end. So if you want to be able to show your kid, if your kid's like 11, 12 and you think it's okay or whatever, it's probably fine, but I would just stick in that range as a dad, just to let you know what's happening there. So at this time, I know, we talk about our Hail Marys, and as I look through this, like I said, there's a whole lot of good things in this. Just that main thing that took me out of it was those cutaways and some of the silliness that they added into it. But I think, when I think of this movie, I think I've given it 3 Hail Marys. This is a good movie. I thought it was a good war movie. It doesn't, it's not as good as something like a Hacksaw Ridge or something like that, which really just dive deep into it. Like, this isn't a deep dive kind of movie. This is a straight up, here's what happened, here's who this guy is, and here's how they came through it. So it's a pretty simple, straightforward movie, but I thought it was well done. I thought Tom Hanks, of course, the acting, everyone in it was great. I don't really have any complaints of anyone acting. I thought all that was great. I thought, honestly, like, I don't know, if this was Tom Hanks' first time writing a movie, I thought he did a great job. If it's not his first time, maybe second, third, whatever, I mean, I thought he did good. I didn't know he had that in him. I knew he was a great actor. He's one of my top favorite actors of all time, but I didn't know he could write too. So I thought that was great. So I definitely say this is a movie worth checking out. If you have Apple TV Plus, it's on there. You can watch it on there. Just so you know, if you bought an iPhone 11 recently, Apple TV Plus comes with it. And so you'll have it for a year. That's how I have it. So just check it out that way. And if not, and if you don't have Apple TV Plus, you don't have access to it, maybe when it comes out for rent, when Apple TV allows it to be out for rent, or it comes out on Blu-ray or whatever, I definitely will checking it out. It's a good movie, a good different perspective to the story of World War II and what these men had to go through. So it's definitely worth checking out. 3 Hail Marys for me. It's a good movie. Like I said, a couple of those things just kind of kept me from moving it into that forward, like a really great movie. But definitely 3 Hail Marys, definitely worth it. And I think that, and I just think is definitely worth checking out. So thank you guys so much for being here with me. Thank you for checking out this review with me of Greyhound. And again, if you have the opportunity, you have the chance, check it out. It's so awesome. And if you don't need to check it out later, do so there. And just thank you guys so much for being here. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on the bell so you don't miss out on any future videos. And then also next week, we have some surprises for you, Gary and I, with our episode on Monday, maybe some other things throughout the week. So again, make sure you subscribe, turn on the bell, because we got some cool things coming. Thank you guys so much for being a part of this. And let me know in the comments if you've seen Greyhound. If you haven't, if you're going to check it out later, I would love to hear from you so we can continue the conversation. All right, guys, thank you so much for being here. We will talk to you soon.